Ladies and gentlemen, let me holler at you for a second. We see, I know you're done. Seeing the headlines flying across yo TV screens, yo phones, yo timelines. ESPN cuts ties with Shannon Sharpe following lawsuit settlement. Now, bruh, let me tell you something. When I first saw it, I said, Lord have mercy, here we go again. Another brother making the front page for all the wrong reasons. And see, it ain't just that they reported it. It's how they reported it. Quick, sharp, short, like they wanted to slice and keep moving. ESPN ain't write no love letter. They ain't say nothing about how much I brought to the table, how I shifted the culture, how the ratings went up, how people was laughing with me every Monday morning talking about LeBron James or the Cowboys. No, bruh. They said it plain. Cut ties. Corporate talk for thank you for your service, but we don't want to deal with the smoke. Now let me paint the picture for you. When corporations like ESPN, and don't forget that's Disney money behind it, see a lawsuit, especially one with lawyers talking, checks moving and settlements being written, they don't care about the nuance. They don't care about waiting for the full story. They care about headlines. They care about brand protection. That mouse with the big ears don't like no controversy. Bruh, Disney gonna keep it squeaky clean, even if they gotta let go of somebody who making them millions in ratings. Bruh, I done played in the NFL. I've been on TV. I've been in boardrooms. I know how this works. When you're a high-profile figure, you're not just an employee. You're a liability and an asset all in one. You bring in the dollars, but if your name get attached to something messy, they look at you like you, the grenade. ESPN said, we can't afford no grenades. So they pulled the plug. But here's the thing that's gonna surprise y'all. I'm saying even mad. Hurt? Yeah? Yeah. Because when you play in their system, you can't be surprised when they play by they rules. And the rules of big corporations is simple. Protect the bag, protect the brand, and keep it moving. Bro, they'll trade you quicker than an NFL team trading a 35-year-old running back with bad knees. Now, bro, before we get into lawsuits and settlements, let's rewind this tape for a second. Y'all gotta understand how I even got to this point at ESPN, because it didn't happen overnight. Nah. Unsee didn't just wake up and get on. First take sitting across from Stephen A. Smith. This journey been long, winding, and full of people doubting me every step of the way. See, before ESPN, I was locked in battle with Skip Bayless on Undisputed. And bro, let me tell you, I gave that man more hell than a Dallas Cowboys playoff game. We went toe-to-toe every morning at 6:30 a.m. Pacific. And I ain't gonna lie. After 7 years, that relationship got toxic. Too much tension, too many jabs, too much each. Now here's where folks made their first mistake. They thought Shannon Sharpe was going to disappear without Skip Bayless. They thought I was the sidekick, not the star. They said, he ain't going to make it without F-Zone. And what I tell y'all, never underestimate a country boy from Glenville, Georgia. I ain't just survived. I leveled up when I walked on to First Take with Stephen A. It was like two heavyweights finally meeting in the ring. Stephen A. been running ESPN for decades, but I brought something he couldn't. That raw, unfiltered, down-home authenticity, the jokes, the memes, the cigar in the mouth, the Hennessy bottle on the desk, the LeBron James cape. People tuned in not just for the debates, but because they felt like they were sitting on the couch with ONC talking sports. And guess what happened? Ratings went up. Social clips went viral. Young audiences who ain't watched ESPN in years came back just to see ONC cut up. You'll know what I brought? I brought culture. Let's keep it a buck. ESPN have been struggling with that. They had analysts. They had reporters. But they ain't had no voices. Nobody you wanted to quote at the barbershop. Nobody who could take a 3-hour debate show and make one 20-second clip trending on TikTok. Once did that, and I ain't saying it out of arrogance. I'm saying it out of facts. Bro, when I talked LeBron, Twitter went crazy. When I roasted the Cowboys, Dallas fans was crying him in my mention. When I broke down a football play, even coaches was nodding like, yup, he right. That's the blend. Entertainment and knowledge. Too many folks in sports media can only do one. I did both. And Stephen A. Oh, we had chemistry. Different styles, different backgrounds, but the clash was magic. He the professor, I'm the preacher. He bring the data, I bring the soul. And when you mix that together, you get fireworks. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because this right here is why the news of ESPN cutting ties hit so hard. Bruh, I didn't just work there. I was one of the engines keeping that ship afloat. I was the reason Monday mornings felt like an event again. So when they pull the plug, it ain't just about Shannon Sharpe leaving. It's about ESPN risking losing. The very connection to the audience. They've been fighting to win back. I ain't gonna front. Some of my proudest moments came sitting in that chair next to Stephen A., talking about Deion Sanders' riveting Colorado football, breaking down Patrick Mahomes' greatness, defending LeBron like he was my kinfolk. I poured my heart into that job. And bruh, it worked. The numbers don't lie. The fans don't lie. The memes don't lie. But let me tell you all something else. Success always comes with envy. Always. Always. There was whispers. Shannon too big for this network. Shannon bringing too much attention. Is this Stephen A. show or Shannon's show now? Corporate America don't like when one personality shine too bright. Bruh, especially if that personality don't fit the cookie chain cutter image. I ain't never gonna be cookie chain cutter. I'm gonna be me. Loud, proud, country, black, unapologetic. And that's the irony of it all. The very thing that made me successful at ESPN is the same thing that made me disposable when trouble came. They loved me when the clips was trending. They loved me when the ratings was up. But the moment my name was attached to something messy, they said, we can't afford Shannon Sharpe no more. It reminded me of football, bruh. When you're young and running full 40-yard dashes, teams can wait to pay you. But when you're 33, knees creaking, and you drop one pass in the playoffs, they cutting you the next day. That's the business. ESPN just did business. ESPN just did me like an old wide receiver past his prime. Even though I was still putting up Pro Bowl numbers. All right, bruh. Now we gotta talk about the elephant in the room. The lawsuit. 'Cause you can't understand why ESPN made the move they did without understanding how corporate America treat lawsuits. Now let me make one thing clear off the top. A lawsuit don't always mean guilt. A settlement don't always mean you did something wrong. Sometimes it means you're just tired of fighting. Sometimes it mean the legal fees. Sometimes it mean you don't even want your family dragged through the mud in public. But see, corporations, they don't care about nuance. They see the word lawsuit, and they see risk. They see headlines. They see sponsors asking questions. Bruh, when you work at ESPN, you ain't just representing yourself. You representing Disney, and Disney ain't playing with its image. You think Mickey Mouse gonna let his name be tied up with controversy? No, bro. The mouse gonna cut you loose before he let the brand take a hit. I done been in enough locker rooms to know how optics work. Back in my NFL days, if a teammate got in trouble off the field, the team wasn't sitting around talking about facts. They was talking about how it looked. Was it a distraction? Was it making the owner nervous? Was it giving the media too much ammo? Same thing here. ESPN saw headlines. They saw lawyers, they saw settlement checks, and they said, we can't afford this smoke. And here's the part you'll gotta understand. Settlements ain't always about guilt. Corporate lawyers settle cases every day. They settle to save time. They settle to save money, they settle to save face. But once the word settlement hit the press, woo, brah, the public treat it like a guilty verdict. People don't read the fine print. They just see lawsuit settled and assume the worst. That's the danger. That's why ESPN moves so quick. Now, you might be asking, Unce, why didn't they just ride it out with you? Why didn't they stand by you? Why didn't they stand by you? And the answer is simple. Because in corporate America, loyalty is paper thin. They loyal to ratings until ratings ain't worth the risk. They loyal to personalities until those personalities become liabilities. The same network that celebrated me last month and shed a tear cutting me loose this month. That's just the cold reality. And bruh, let's not act like this is new. ESPN done this before. They cut ties with folks over tweets, over off-camera comments, over legal trouble. They cautious to a fault sometimes, but from their perspective, it's cheaper to let go of one star than to risk losing millions in sponsorship. That's how they look at it. But let me tell y'all what made this sting a little more. ESPN knew what I meant to that network. They knew how much of the audience came for Shannon Sharpe. And still, when that lawsuit headline popped up, they didn't hesitate. That's the reminder for everybody listening. In corporate America, don't ever confuse being valuable with being irreplaceable. You can be both the MVP and one phone call away from being unemployed. Now, I ain't going to sit here and act like I don't understand their logic. If I was running $1 billion company, maybe I make the same move. But that don't make it right. That don't make it fair. It just make it business. And business ain't personal. Business gon' cut you off mid-sentence if it mean protecting the bottom line. Here's another layer though. The lawsuit, whether I win, lose or settle, gon' fade from the headlines. That's how news cycles work. But ESPN cutting me, that's permanent. That's legacy. Years from now, folks ain't gonna remember the details of no settlement. They gonna remember, oh yeah, ESPN let Shannon go over that lawsuit. See how perception work? Bruh. That's why I always tell young athletes, entertainers, media folks, you gotta own your platform. Cause the minute controversy knock on your door, the big companies gon' scatter. They gon' leave you stand alone. But if you own your podcast, if you own your tube, if you got your own fan base, can't nobody fire you from that. That's freedom. That's leverage. That's why I built Club Shay Shay the way I did. 'Cause I knew one day this TV job could disappear. And guess what? They cut the cord, but I still got my own mic. Now let me step back for a second and give you the big picture. Lawsuits in this country been weaponized. Sometimes they legit, sometimes they opportunistic. But either way, the effect is the same. Reputations get hit. And in the era of social media, where headlines travel faster than facts, the hit to your image can do more damage than the lawsuit itself. ESPN didn't want to wait for nuance. They didn't want to wait for facts. They said, headline bad enough, we out. And that's what stings. Bruh, 'cause if you've been rocking with me, if you watch me every morning, if you listen to my heart on First Take or Club, Shay Shay, you know Unce ain't perfect. But you know Unce real. And sometimes being real put you in messy situations. But the corporations, they don't got patience for real. They want clean, polished, and predictable. That ain't never gonna be me. So when the lawsuit came, the settlement got inked, ESPN made a move. Quick, cold, clean, just like a GM cutting a player in the locker room before practice. 1 minute you suited up. Next minute security walking you out the building. That's how fast it happened. But guess what, bro? A cut ain't the end. In football, I got cut before and I bounced back. In media, I just got cut and I'm gonna bounce back again. You can cut a man, but you can't cut his voice. And my voice, it's bigger now than it ever was. Bro, let's peel back the curtain on ESPN for a minute. 'Cause a lot of folks don't understand what this network really is. They think ESPN just sports talk, highlights and debate shows. No, bro. ESPN is a machine. And that machine is powered by Disney. Now Disney, that's a company that sells magic to kids. Theme parks, cartoons, Marvel superheroes, Star Wars. Their whole brand is built on squeaky clean, family-friendly image. So when ESPN Disney's baby, put somebody like me on TV, they get more than just ratings. They take in a calculated risk. See? Disney don't want no headlines about lawsuits. Disney don't want no smoke. Disney don't even want a whiff of controversy. You sneeze wrong, they hand you a tissue and show you the door. That's how they operate. That's why ESPN always been quick with the scissors. Remember Jamali Hill? Remember Paul Pierce? Remember Rachel Nichols? The list long. Bruh, and the pattern the same. Soon as things get messy, ESPN say, we appreciate you, but we gotta protect the brand. Now, I ain't gonna lie. That cutthroat approach worked for them financially. They make billions. But what it costs them culturally, that's another story. When you fire, suspend, or let go of personalities every time there's controversy, what you end up with. Safe. You get people who speak like robots who's scared to say anything real, cause they worried about their contract. And fans notice, bruh. Sports ain't about perfect PR statements. Sports is about passion, culture, arguments, debate. When you sanitize it too much, you lose the soul. That's what I brought. I was the soul. I was the guy fans trusted to say what they was thinking. And the numbers proved it. But to ESPN, all it take is one headline to erase all that. That's corporate logic. And once you understand the machine, you stop taking it personal. Here's the bigger problem though. ESPN, already struggling in this new media age. They facing competition from podcasts, YouTube, independent creators who don't gotta answer to no corporate bosses. People don't just want to watch highlight reels no more. They want authentic voices. And when ESPN cut ties with me, they ain't just cut a man. They cut off a pipeline to the culture. Bro, let's keep it real. You think 20-year-olds was tuned in to First Take for polished stats and perfect grammar? No. They was tuning in for unseen, for the laughs, the rants, the raw truth. ESPN lost that. And when you lose that, you lose relevance. So yeah, they made the safe move. But the safe move ain't always the smart move in the long run. Sometimes the thing that make you nervous is the very thing that keep you alive. And I was that for ESPN, but they ain't see it that way. They saw risk. They saw liability. So they hit the eject button. That's how corporate ESPN move. Now, bruh, let me tell you all something. When one door closed, all is see kicking another one open. I done been doubted my whole life. Folks said I was too slow to play tight end in the NFL. 3 Super Bowls later, they had to eat them words. Folks said I couldn't be no broadcaster. 2 Sports Emmy Awards later, they had to eat them words again. Folks said I was finished when I left Skip, and then Club Shay Shay became one of the biggest podcasts in the world. So guess what? This ESPN chapter. Just another setup for my next win. Club Shay Shay pulling in millions of views week after week. Guests lined up round the block. And bro, that's mine. Can't nobody cut me from my own show. I got YouTube, I got social media, I got the streets. And don't get it twisted, other networks gonna come calling. Fox, Amazon. You think they ain't looking at these ratings? And these headlines? They know Shannon Sharpe ain't done. But here's what makes this moment special. I don't need them. I don't need another corporate network to validate me. I already proved myself. The people validated me. The fans, the culture, the numbers, bruh, that's all the validation I need. And be on TV and podcasts. Who say I can't build my own network? Who say I can't expand into production, movies, even ownership of a sports franchise one day? Bruh, the way my platform growing, the possibilities endless. So, nah, I ain't stressing over no ESPN. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the memories. I'm grateful for the memories. I'm grateful for Stephen A. and everybody I worked with. But I ain't begging to stay at no table. I'll build my own. And when I do, don't be surprised when the same folks who cut ties with me come back, knocking asking for a seat. That's how the game go. Now, bro, let me land this plane. ESPN cutting ties with me over a lawsuit settlement? That's corporate America in a nutshell. They love you when you profitable. They drop you when you complicated. They celebrate you on Monday and erase you on Tuesday. That's how it goes. But here's what I know. You can't cut God's plan. You can't cut destiny. And you can't cut a voice that belonged to the people. ESPN don't own Shannon Sharpe. Disney don't own Shannon Sharpe. And as long as I got breath, as long as I got a mic, as long as I got people rocking with me, I ain't going nowhere. So let this be a lesson. Bruh, don't get too comfortable in nobody else's system. Build your own. Own your platform. Cause a day gon' come when the corporation decide you a risk. And when that day come, you better have something that can't be taken away. ESPN might have cut ties, but I'm still standing, still laughing, still smoking his cigar, still defending LeBron, still clowning the Cowboys, and still telling it like it is. The story don't end here, brah. This just the start of the next chapter. And if you think Shannon Sharpe gon' fade away, let me remind you of one thing. Every time they counted me out, I came back louder, stronger, and better than before. This gon' be no different. So to ESPN I say thank you. To the fans, I say I love you. And to the culture I say, ain't done yet. Not even close.